Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Ramblin' Rich. I'm your host, Ramblin' Richard Griffith. So, today is February 26, 2021. We're in the middle of the pandemic, all that's going on still. Today, I just wanted to kind of just chit-chat about some different jobs that I've done and more or less my job history. So, first job, well, first of all, my father taught my brother and I about how to earn money and whatnot. When we were little boys, first time I can remember us like getting paid, or my dad actually started a ledger. And what he would do is he had a ledger, had my brother and my name in this ledger, and his idea was to reward us for doing jobs. And we were living in San Mateo, California at the time, 1701 Cypress Avenue, San Mateo. And what he would do is he would say, "Hey, Richard, you got to cut the front yard, and then for the front yard, for me mowing the front yard, you give me $2." Well, I wouldn't get actual money or cash, but it would go into like an account, like our ledger account. So I would have $2 in the black on my ledger, and he had a black pen and a red pen, and then whenever we wanted to buy something or spend something, he would deduct that from the ledger, and then we had a balance there. So basically he was teaching us about banking. We didn't know it at the time. I was like 7, 8 years old. You know, we didn't care. We didn't know about that stuff. But that's where my kind of job stuff started, and Dad would pay us for different chores. We had an allowance, 50 cents a week if we kept our room clean. And then he would add on stuff. If we cleaned the garage, he'd give us a couple of bucks. If we cleaned up the backyard, it was $1 or $2. 50 cents for helping Mom bring in the groceries. You know, just any little thing like that we could get paid for if we asked for it. And yeah, he wrote it down the ledger, and we would build it up. And then when we had $15, because at that time $15 was a lot of money, we'd go to like Toys R Us or to the local store and just buy a toy or something that I wanted for that amount of money. He would buy it, and then when we get home, he would actually get the receipt down to the penny and deduct that from our ledger, and we would have a balance. If we went over the balance, he would get out the red pen, and we would be minus, like, I can remember being like $2.60 in the red, and that was money that I owed him. So whenever I would ask to go clean the backyard or something, that money would go on the ledger, but it would go to the arrears. So it did teach us good money, banking, and stuff like that. So, and the overall big picture, at the time I thought it was cheesy because I wasn't getting no cash. But the overall big picture, it turned out to be a pretty good idea. So that's kind of where I got my work ethic from. The first real job I had, we had moved out to Colorado in 1976, and my Uncle Tom was mowing yards. He was getting a little too old to be doing it for the money that he was getting. He was getting $2 a yard, except for Mr. Day next door. Mr. Day got the freaking grandfathered in deal, 50 cents a yard. My uncle cut his yard for 50 cents. That's how it started off back in the day when he started doing their yards. For when I took over in 76, Mr. Day was the only one that was grandfathered in at 50 cents a yard. Mr. Pavey across the street, he got bumped up. He paid me the $2 a yard. And Doc Johnson, catty corner from Grandma's house, he would pay the $2. And then what was their names across the other way, across Walnut Street from that guy, he got the $2 price also. So that's how I made money during the summertime at my grandmother's, in Lamar anyway, before we moved there. Or when we did move there, I took over my uncle's job of mowing those guys' yard. So after mowing yards, I also delivered a paper there in Lamar. It was called True Grit. It was a paper I ordered off the back of a magazine. And how that worked is you would order these papers. Say I ordered 50 papers. Then I would take those 50 papers and I would sell them to to people for a quarter. And what I would do at that point is, for every one I sold, I would send back the company a nickel. So I made 20 cents, they made a nickel. And heck, that was a pretty dang good deal. Especially once I figured it out after, probably the first couple of months after selling off all my papers and sending the money back to those guys. I found out that they didn't really care. They didn't care if I sold all the papers. They didn't ever buy them back. And they would just keep sending them to me. So it turned out after a while I started scamming them. I would just sell all the papers I could and just tell them that I sold so many and send them a certain amount of money, like $5 or something like that. Or not even that, to be honest. I think it was like $2.25 was what I would send back to the company, and then I would pocket the rest of the change. And then once I figured all that out, I just started, like I said, just telling them I sold only 5 papers and I would sell all of them and just keep the rest of the money. So, I know. Karma's a bitch, and it did get me back, so don't worry about that. After that, selling papers, I also delivered paper daily, the Lamar Daily, and that was a real paper route, throwing the papers, putting them in the freaking sleeves. They would come in a bulk. I'd have to untie them, roll them up, rubber band them, and put them in the plastic sleeve if it was raining or snowing. That was real freaking work, man. That was work. It was a lot of time sitting there rubber banding and sleeving these newspapers every day. Granted, it wasn't a big paper. It was a Lamar Daily paper. I mean, maybe 10, 12 pages, if that. And that's the big 6 full pages fold out, if that. So it wasn't a big paper or anything, but I put them on the front of my bike. I had the bag of holding them all in the paper bag and on front of my bicycle and actually throwing them out like that. I did that for, I don't know, probably 6 months. When the winter came, that was enough of that because it snows in Lamar. Next job after Paperboy, kind of I would say my first real job was up in Cripple Creek. After we moved to Lamar, we moved to Cripple Creek. Up there, I was wrangling horses. My first real job that I got paid for. I went to work every day and got paid. It was fun, man. Had a blast. That's where I learned all my horse stuff. At that time, I really didn't know much about it. I'd rode horses before, but I never rode them on a daily basis. Never really considered myself a cowboy per se. At that point, I was from California, man. I'm a city boy, and that kind of introduced me to the equestrian side of it. And man, I love it. I love horses, man. Horses they're beautiful animals. They got their own personalities and own temperaments. You got to get to know them. They got to get to know you. And if you get a good rapport with I've had a couple of really, really good horses, man. Really good horses. And Dixie was one. Probably one of my favorite horses. Dixie was an Appaloosa. She was up there at Cripple Creek, and man, I'd ride her all the time. She was a gray spotted Appaloosa on the back, white spots on the back. And yeah, she was a tall horse, but I really liked her. We did have another cool black horse that everybody wanted to ride, the black horse, obviously, but he was a little temperamental. And to be honest, didn't really quite like that horse. He was kind of a dick. Anyhow, I would take people out on tours, horseback tour. We would have 2 people, one person leading, one person following behind, so everybody that was on the tour would stay in between. And it didn't matter. I've both led and I've reared, and either way, it doesn't matter to me. You're riding horses. You're out in the country. You're riding along these trails or dirt roads. And up in Cripple Creek, we had the half-hour tour, the 1-hour tour, and the 3-hour tour. We had, you could do 2 hours, or you can rent the horse for the day. Not too many people rented the horses for the day because we actually just let them take the horse, You know, you rented it, you take it, you can go ride it anywhere you wanted to. For us, we had permission from the landowner to take people out on certain tours on their property. If you got the half-hour tour, we just rode you down the road in front of a mine and back. That was it. It was 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back. That was your half-hour tour. Real quick story. One time we had these girls from New York. Me and my partner. His name is Adam Sutton, and he was working there with us. He actually got me the job there, and he was flirting with these girls from New York. And of course, they were pretty girls, long blonde hair, short shorts. You know, I think there was 3 of them. They were sisters. Their parents were there too. But he was flirting with them and everything. And I was following along. He was leading the bunch with the girls up front. And they were supposed to go out on a 1-hour tour. And he got to talking, and he just kept riding and kept riding. And I was in the back. You know, I don't really have control over the flow of the horses, but. Long story short, it ended up taking us 2 hours. He took these girls on a 2-hour tour just to keep talking to them and whatnot. And when we got back, man, our boss was freaking pissed. He got docked an hour pay because he took them out an extra hour longer. But he said it was worth it. He hooked up with one of them after work and everything. They went to the arcade and just, you know, because I guess the folks were staying there in town for the evening or whatever. I'm not sure. But it was a tourist town. And it still is to this day. It's an old gold mining town. And you really can find gold there. And I've panned for gold in the creek. That's right there outside the stables in Cripple Creek. And I have found flakes of gold in that creek. So it's still there. It's still an active gold mining community. There's an active gold mine right up on the hill there, in between Cripple Creek and Colorado Springs. But yeah, that's where I learned mostly about my horse. You know, how horses are, how to groom them, doctor them. You know, how to get them in from the corral. Some of them you got to go out there and actually rope them. Pull them in, jump on them, and take them in. Some of them, like Dixie, she was awesome. All I'd have to do is get some hay or a carrot or something. I go out there with some food. They would usually come on over to the fence. I'll open them up, wrangle them into the small corral there that we had. Brush them, groom them, saddle them, and line them up for the day. And then. You know, of course, we knew what horses were good ones, which ones were the beginning horses, which ones were the temperamental ones. And, you know, so depending on your experience, if you come up and you tell me, yeah, I know how to ride horses, I'm pretty experienced, probably going to evaluate you a little bit. And if I think you're good enough, or if I'm just a dick, I'll give you one of our more spirited horses, see if you can control him. Sometimes they couldn't. If they can't, no big deal. It was more or less just to teach them a lesson to see if they could handle it. Some people wanted to saddle their own horse and stuff. You know what? We let them do that too. If that's your thing, you want to do that. We're open to that. That just means I ain't got to do it. But most of the time, it was just taking people out on tours. Met a lot of good folk. Worked with some good people there too. I was making, starting off there, $5 a day. 10-hour days to start. Later on, when they did pay me more, turned out to be like $50 a day at the end of it all. But at that time, I was working 12 hours a day. And not only that, but we were doctoring them after the company closed. We would wrangle them. We couldn't wrangle them out into the corral anymore. The city ordinance had changed. We had to run the horses from the city out to another corral. And that was actually pretty fun too. I have ran horses, stampeded herd of horses down Main Street, Cripple Creek, down Main Street on out towards Mount Pisgah. That's out there where our corral, the new corral, was. We used to put them right out there alongside of the stables where we were working. but I guess we were getting too many horses, and it was okay to have like 4 or 5 out there. And that's where we kept the spirited horses, because those, they didn't mind. So we just left those guys there, because sometimes they wouldn't even come in out of the field. So we left the 3 or 4 there, and ran the rest of them out to the corral. After Cripple Creek, we moved to Delhart, and in Delhart, at that time I was in high school. So the jobs I had in Delhart were at United Foods grocery store. I was a bag boy there. That's where I learned, mopping the room, mopping the kitchen, no big deal after you've had to mop a fucking grocery store. Oh man, a whole freaking grocery store. I had to mop the whole thing at nighttime. And that's where I figured out, you know what? After you mop a whole grocery store every night, mopping the kitchen, that ain't shit. Believe me, it ain't shit. I don't care how big of a mess there is in that kitchen. You can have the water running out of the kitchen, over the flow in the sink, and it ain't going to be nothing that I ain't seen worse. I remember when we did the first start, we really had to deep clean the floors once. And that's what my boss did. He just grabbed the whole bucket and poof, just down the whole aisle. And that's what we did. We just got there and just mopped it up, squeezed it out, mopped it up, squeezed it out, till it's all cleaned up. And that's how he wanted it deep cleaned. If we were just doing it for the night, just wet the mop down, run it over real quick, pick up all the dust and dirt and debris, scrub a little bit on the dirty spots, basically just make it clean. And manager walk-ins inspection. He had a flashlight that he would run down the aisle to see if he could see any scuff marks or anything like that, or places that we may have missed. He was kind of cool like that. I remember the manager there drove a 10th anniversary Trans Am, 1979, 10th anniversary. That's the silver one with light silver with the dark silver hood bird. And I remember when that guy left the company, he was moving on. It was his last day there. And to play a joke on the guy, what we did is we took like 3 or 4 boxes of tampons, or not tampons, of the maxi pads, and some ketchup, and we opened them up, put ketchup on the maxi pad, and peeled the back off the little sticky thing on the back and stuck it to his car. So when he walked out that night, his whole car had all these maxi pads stuck all over it with red ketchup stains all over it. I mean, it looked nasty, but man, it was so freaking funny. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. Let me think of any other jobs. I don't think I had any other jobs while I was in high school there in Lamar, or there in Delhart. After Delhart, holy shit, we moved to Pampa. And in Pampa, I had like real jobs there too. First job I had there, I remember we worked at McDonald's. Jody Miller, Debbie Bowers. We all worked together there at McDonald's. I remember Lydia. She's a good-looking girl I used to work with as well. And a couple of other really cool, super cool people I worked with there. Arturo, the manager. Yeah, a couple of other. I think Earl worked there with us as well. Yeah, it was really, really good times working at McDonald's there in Pampa. I also worked at a place called Big Cheese Pizza, which was actually right across the street from McDonald's there. And that was actually a pretty cool place too. They were based out of Kansas City, I believe. I don't know if they're in business anymore, Big Cheese Pizza. But the cool thing about those folks, you got a pound of cheese, a pound of mozzarella on your cheese pizza. And then if you order pepperoni, you got the pound of mozzarella cheese with pepperoni. And then, you know, that was the whole thing. It was a pound of freaking cheese on your pizza. And, man, it was awesome. That was a great place to work. And we used to do stupid stuff. We used to trade hamburgers for pizza with McDonald's and Burger King and things like that. After that, in Lamar, that was still in high school, working at McDonald's. During high school also, I ended up moving to Lamar, Colorado to finish high school, to graduate there mid-year. And in Lamar, I had a couple of jobs. I worked at Burger King for a while. And whenever I worked at Burger King, they also remembered my Aunt Jackie, who had worked there as well. So I worked there. As the Burger King I worked at was in Lamar. Then I also worked at the Pizza Hut in Lamar too. And I can remember one time the manager there at Pizza Hut, how I quit Pizza Hut is manager called me up, says, "Hey Richie, dishwasher just quit. Can you come in? Can you come in and pick up where you left off?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, no big deal. I'll be there in an hour." So went home, got ready, went to work, walked into back room of Pizza Hut, clocked in, walked into the kitchen. Every single pan they had there, stacked to the frickin' ceiling. Every pan, every size. They probably had maybe 4 or 5 clean pans that they were just rinsing themselves, washing and reusing at that time. So I walked in there, and this place is it's covered in all these pans stacked up. And I walk in, he's like, "Oh, hey Richie, I'm glad you're here, man. Get started." I looked at him and I said, "Sorry, man. Ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen." I go, I don't mind coming in and doing my regular job and everything, but there ain't no way I'm coming in here, busting my ass, fucking on my day off, to clean all this shit that, no, I'm sorry, that ain't gonna happen." And he told me then, he says, if I leave and I clock out, not to come back. I told him, "You know what, I'm sorry. I only had about a month or 2 to go in school. It wasn't worth it to me anymore. Forget it, man." I clocked out, told him, "Sorry, Richie's not your dishwasher tonight." So, and that's how I quit that job there in Lamar. And I graduated high school, went back to Pampa, ended up getting married. Let's see, there in Pampa there, after I went back after graduating, I got a job at Handy Hut, which is like the Allsups that are there. I'm sure Allsups are still there. I don't know if the Handy Huts are still there, but it's the same thing. 7-Eleven, Handy Hut, a little convenience store on the side. And so I worked there for a while, just cashier at Handy Hut. And how I lost that job is it was over breakdancing. I would in the middle of the night, and when it was slow, I would get some baking powder, or the baby powder, off the shelf and sprinkle a little on the floor behind the counter, and practice my moonwalk. And because it was the '80s, man. That's what people were doing. They were breakdancing, and all of Ann's brothers were breakdancing too at the time. So I was practicing my moonwalk, and unbeknownst to me, man, I'm on camera, obviously, and I knew I was on camera because, they got cameras on there to watch for the money and see if you're stealing shit. But, yeah, they caught me moonwalking, and they actually jammed me up on it. But they didn't jam me up on it like the next day or anything. It was about 2 weeks later, and my till came up a little short. It had come up short and over a little bit. And I was honest with them. I didn't jive anything. I didn't try to manipulate any money or nothing like that. If I was short, I was short. If I was over, I was over. Sorry. But yeah, I came up $12 short once. $12. Which is a lot, Usually it's $1 or $2, no, $1.20. I think it was the most I was ever short before. And I didn't even think of anything. I'm an honest guy. I don't steal. I'm not gonna steal from the till. I'm on camera and shit, you know. But yeah, I came up $12 short. I don't know how. Anyway, I wrote it up that way. Hey, I'm $12 short on my till. I'm sorry. And they reviewed the camera, and they didn't say I stole anything. But the reason they fired me is whenever I was $12 short and they reviewed the cameras, they saw me moonwalking behind the counter, or practicing my moonwalk behind the counter. And it wasn't that I was practicing the moonwalk behind the counter. The official reason is because I was putting the baby powder back there, and it created an unsafe workplace because it causes a slippery. It was very slippery back there. Yeah, it was because I was $12 short. Anyway, they fired me. That's the only job ever been terminated from. And man, it hit me kind of hard. You know, I'd never been fired before. Didn't have that much work experience, but I know I'm an honest guy, and I don't think I did anything wrong. I didn't steal. I didn't, you know what I mean? I understand their point. I understand the $12, and that's what I really think it was. I think it was over the money. I don't think it was really over the break dancing or unsafe workplace. It was over the $12. But yeah, it hurt me kind of hard, man. Probably the only job I really cried over losing, you know. And it was tough, man. I'd never been fired before. It just really got to hit you really hard. But I believe it helped my work ethic as well, because I went out and got another job. I actually got a better job for a construction company, a place called Thornburg Construction. My first job there was a sandblaster, and loved it, man. Loved that job. That was one of my favorite jobs, I would say. Sandblasting heavy equipment. They bring in these road graders, big D8, D10 bulldozers, the heisters, the compactors, those types of big equipment, cat equipment. And I would sandblast all that yellow. What would I do? They bring in the equipment. I wouldn't get to drive it at this point. They would bring in the equipment and park it. I could do two pieces of equipment at a time. My sandblasting equipment was parked in between them. They would come and park on either side of my sandblasting station. And like I'd have a road grader there and a big bulldozer. First thing I'd do is start off with a big duct tape. Duct tape all the windows, duct tape all the rubber, all the hoses, all the little metal piece ends that weren't painted, like for the hydraulic clamps and whatnot. All of those things I would tape off, all the hydraulic hoses, and then I get out my sandblaster and start sandblasting the paint off down to the metal. Easy job. I have different abrasives that I could use. I use sand to get you use sand on metal in order to get all the paint off. And especially if there's different layers of paint, if it had been repainted 4 or 5 times, you really got to get all of that paint off there, and it does take a little bit. But it's fun, man. I had a blast. It was one of the best jobs I ever had. I loved it. Cool thing is too, on the glass, if you tape off certain parts, you can make like little designs. If you sandblast on the glass, it etches the glass, and it's one of those little things you figure out after a while. But yeah, if you don't tape on the glass exact and get everything just perfect, it'll etch the glass, and then when you pull the tape off, the glass is messed up. So after that, I still worked at Thornburg Construction, but I got promoted from sandblaster out to actually working road construction. And Thornburg, we did dirt work. It wasn't the pavement and the asphalt. That was another section of the company. I was doing dirt. Well, I started off in like painting. What they would do is I would sandblast the equipment, then it would move from my area over to the paint booth. they would prime it and paint it brand new there, you know, brand new yellow, put all the cat stickers back on it, so that way the equipment looked new. After that, I got promoted into the dirt work section of it, and that's the people that actually used the equipment. And I started off doing, I started off as just the greaser and the equipment, just a laborer. And what would happen is, first of all, me and this other guy would show up there to work, and our job at the beginning was to grease all the equipment and make sure the equipment got from the yard to the job site. So we'd start an hour earlier than everybody else. We'd get out there, grab the equipment, we'd start up all the equipment and let it start warming up. Then I would grab the road grader first, get the road grader down to where, and park it on the side of the road where it needed to be in our job area, which is probably, you know, we did dirt work, so we were actually grading the road out from a freaking field, making the road with the road grader over and over and over. Then you get these sticks and you stick them in the ground sideways like this. They're called grade sticks. And then you mark down the grade. You have to get a grade rod, which is the rod that they hold up and down. He gets his little telescope, he looks through it. And what that does is telling you the elevation. All of this, although the roads are planned out on what elevation they are, how flat the road is, if the road curves, most roads are pointed at an apex in the middle, so that when it rains, the water runs off to the side to the ditch. So when you grade a road, you don't make a flat grade. You actually grade the road at an angle. And that's why those road graders, when you see them, that blade isn't always flat. It's actually at an angle. And as it's angled down there, it's cutting away that way. So when it does rain, the water flows off of the road. And those are all little things, you know, I didn't know that kind of stuff whenever I was a kid growing up. I didn't know, you know, why there's gutters, why there's ditches, and it's all for water flow. And all that's all planned out in the beginning. They know how much to take off, and that's what you do. So the road grader will come and he'll grade the road down. You'll measure it. Oh, you got to go down another 3 inches. And then he comes in, goes down another. All right, so now you got down another 2 inches. So we, you know, until you get to where it's supposed to be. And you do that for the whole length of the road. It's all planned out with paperwork on what the elevation is on each side of the road, and in the middle point of each highway. If it's a 2-lane highway, where the stripes go, there's a point there. If it's a 4-lane highway, there's 2 of them on each side. So, and what we did is we did all the work. If there was we came across and there was a low point in the ground and a hill, we take off of the hill, put it in the low point. It's called a fill and a remove. You remove it from here, you put it over here, you fill it here. Remove it, fill it to level it all out. And if you do any traveling, you'll see, if you look at the roads, how they're made, it's exactly what happens. They take the stuff off the top of the mountains, put it in the valleys, but before you put it in the valley, you got to put a piece of pipe in there for the water to flow through. And that's what we would do first. We would go around, we'd dig it out a little more, put a piece of corrugated pipe in there, and then we would start filling it in, tampering it down, filling it in, tampering it down. It's a major process. Then once you got your pipe in there and the dirt on top, that's when those compactors come in with the big knobby tires, steel tires, and they just run back and forth over compacting the dirt. So that's how it started. I started off by being a laborer, digging the ditches, fueling the vehicles at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day or during the day, and driving them to the job site in the morning. In the evening time, after everybody left to go home, we would take the equipment, drive it back to the yard, and then service it as well. We have 2 hours after everybody left to get the equipment back to the yard and then to grease it all up. And we went through so much freaking grease, you would not believe. We would go through grease, tons of grease, all the time. Couldn't use enough grease. But that's heavy equipment stuff. A couple of good stories out there while I was doing this road construction stuff at Thornburg. I worked probably a good year out there doing the road construction part, the dirt work. And we did from the summertime to the wintertime. In the wintertime, I had to wear these heavy coveralls, and you're out there freezing your ass off. We'd start a bonfire, have a big old fire going all day long, because we got plenty of shit to burn. We're always digging up tree stumps and stuff like that as we're making our road. But one of the best stories, I seen more rattlesnakes than I ever wanted to see out at this point in Texas. Actually, that's where I've seen my first rattlesnake. The first one I saw, not really a big deal. When I stepped out the truck, heard a buzzing noise, looked down, maybe 2 feet away, there's a freaking rattlesnake, and he spun into a fucking coil. Just that quick. Started rattling. And I put my foot back up, closed the truck door, and you know, my buddy drove up about 10 feet. I'm like, yeah, watch out, there's a snake back there. The other cool thing we saw, it was winter time out there. We're freezing our ass off. This loader was sitting there digging into the side of a hill bank to get ready to remove some of the dirt for a fill that we're doing. And as he digs into the side of this hill with a scoop, he scoops it all up, pulls it out, and all of a sudden, all these snakes, hundreds of snakes, start falling out of the bucket. I mean, it's a big loader bucket. He comes up, he picks it all up and scoops it, and dirt and these snakes just start falling off of the bucket and slithering off. And shit, man, about 5 guys were all the laborers standing around there with our shovels and rake. And we freaking scattered, man. That fucking bucket came up, those snakes started falling off and started scattering, started going in every direction. I ran to the nearest pickup truck, jumped into the bed of the truck. Other guys are jumping them on the hood, getting inside. And we were all running for our lives, man. Every different kind of snake. I seen rattlesnakes. I seen garter snakes. There were yellow snakes. There were black snakes. There were multicolored snakes. I never seen yellow snakes before. There were banded snakes. I guess what happens is, it doesn't matter what kind of snake you are. In the wintertime, you find a snake den, you're welcome. There was hundreds of these snakes in there. And believe me, man, you never saw dudes move so freaking quick in your life after that. Nobody got bit. There was I didn't even see any of them really coil up and start rattling or anything. They were just scattering. They were running. We were running. The guy, I remember the operator that had the bucket in his that had there. You know, whenever he was backing up, the bucket was sitting there shaking like that. He was screaming, "There's snakes!" Just screaming it. Yeah, he was laughing and screaming. I don't know if he was laughing or legitimately like screaming, but yeah, man, we all scattered. It was hilarious. So after Thornburg in Pampa, yeah, I think that's whenever Ann and I were married at that time, and that was like my first real job working the road construction. You know, after the sandblasting. And then after that, we decided to move to Delhart, from Pampa to Delhart, back to Delhart. This will be the second time I lived in Delhart after going to 8th and 9th grade there. When I moved back to Delhart, I hooked back up with my old buddy Larry Robertson and a couple of other friends out there. Larry was a super cool man. He got me a job out at the XIT feedlot. It was a feedlot about 10 miles out of 10, 15 miles out of town to the west, heading towards New Mexico. As you head out of town, you got Caprock feedlots on the right-hand side. XIT is the next big feedlot on the left-hand side. And I swear to God, when you go out there on these roads and you're traveling down that road and you look over to the right-hand side, you see the Caprock feedlot, I guarantee you will see cows from the road to the horizon. I am not lying. You will see cows from the road to the horizon. You travel a little farther on out that road, you look over to the left-hand side, you're going to see the XIT feedlot. That's the feedlot I worked at. My cousin Donnie also worked out there, Donnie Sims. Also my cousin Gene Sims, his brother, Gene's worked out there. He was a truck driver. Donnie was a cowboy out there before I was. And Gene, I think Gene either drove one of the trucks. I'm not sure if it was a corn truck, grain truck, or if it was one of the shit trucks that we load up out there. I think I explained that process before. And my particular job out there at the XIT feedlot. So, but yeah, man, that was a work experience, man. I'm telling you, typical Texas, man. I started off out there on cowboy and on horseback in wintertime, and what I would do is I would wrangle horses from one pen to another, or not horses, on horseback, wrangling the cows from one pen to another pen, and basically that's it. We take them from this pen, move them over to that pen, close this pen, and then what would happen is they would have a small bobcat go in there and clean up all the cow shit in the pen, put it into one of those shit trucks, shit spreaders, or manure spreader. And what that is, it's basically just a dump truck with some augers on the back, and they pile all this shit, this horse or this cow manure into the back of this dump truck and sell it to the farmers. And it would go out to a farmer's field, start dumping the manure, augering it out into the field to fertilize it. And we sold that manure to the farmers. That's how they supplemented income to the feedlot. And after that, so here I am out there on horseback. When you're not wrangling the cows from pen to pen, you're inside either playing cards inside the stable or getting warm by the fire. We had a fire barrel there. We'd just throw hay and wood, stay warm by the fire. I froze my ass off on that fucking horse, man. It was cold, but it was an experience. And again, it's the second job I ever had where I was actually on horseback, and my job title, cowboy. So, yeah, I can honestly say I was a real cowboy, and I did live in Texas, had a belt buckle and everything. After XIT, I was making $1,000 a month out there. $1,000 a month in 1985, 86. Stephanie was born in Pampa, 1985. That's when we moved over out there to Delhart. It was 85, 86. After Delhart, we moved back to Pampa. And from Pampa, we moved to California. We weren't in Pampa very long. Mom and Dad had moved out and were working at the El Ranch Motel there in Pampa. We had ran motels before there in Delhart. We ran the XIT Ranch Motel. And then my godparents ran the Texas Motel there in Delhart. So we'd had experience running these motels. So when we moved to Pampa, my mom and dad started running the El Ranch Motel, and our house, nobody was living in the house. They had moved out of the house into the El Ranch, and so Ann and I moved back into the house there on Red Deer, 608 Red Deer. That's the house Stephanie was born in. Not in, but where we were living where Stephanie was born. She was born in the hospital there in Pampa. I remember Shannon's wife Lola coming over to that house too, and we would all play Risk. So we'd sit there and we'd do have the big board game Risk on the kitchen table, and Ann and I would always be doing puzzles, things like that. But that was our big thing, is our family and friends would come over, we'd play Risk. the board game. If we didn't finish, we would actually leave it set up. We had a special spot. We'd set it all up over there and leave it for the next week whenever people would come over. And it was a common thing. Sometimes we wouldn't finish. We'd leave it set up there for the whole week and finish the game. We did end up moving to California in 1986. And we moved out there. First of all, I stayed with my grandmother over in Pittsburgh. And then I got an apartment over in South San Francisco. During that time, though, I was living with my grandmother. Finally got an apartment over in San Francisco and got me a job at the airport there for security. My very first security guard job was in Pampa. I forgot to mention this. In Pampa, I also worked as a security guard at the hospital. Graveyard. I was graveyard security, 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, no days off. I was actually working at the hospital whenever Stephanie was born. And so the cool thing about this was I knew Dr. Black personally. He's the one that delivered Stephanie. And I knew all the nurses in the ER. I mean, come on, I worked there. I was the only security guard there at nighttime. So I knew the whole staff. And so when Stephanie was born, and whenever Ann was inside the hospital there, and Stephanie was born, we got preferred treatment. Believe me, they knew me, they knew my wife, they knew everybody. So, yeah. In fact, I remember whenever Stephanie was born, I'm sitting there, and Ann's pushing, and I see her head popping out. I see her face, and I'm like, ah, it's a boy, because at the time, we were that couple, probably one of the last in America that I didn't want to know what the gender was. I wanted a boy, and I wanted a boy so bad, I didn't even want to know what it was until it came out. And I had planned on a boy. His name was going to be Richard Griffith III. I had him a belt buckle made that said "Third" on it. Actually, my dad had it made out of leather, had "Third" on it, and that's what we were going to call him. We were calling him the Third, or I was going to nickname him the Turd, and that was going to be his little nickname. I had Dickie. You don't know what it's like growing up with a nickname of Dickie. Come here, Dick, little Dick. Get it, Dickie. Ah, yeah. I heard it all. Helped toughen me up. Don't get offended too easily after a name like that. And so I was going to name him the Turd, or the Third, and call him the Turd, and make him go through that same kind of shit that I did. But turned out Stephanie was coming out. I'm like, the head's out. It's a boy, he's beautiful. And then she comes all the way out, and it's a girl. It didn't matter. I was still excited. It's a girl. But the bad thing is we were expecting a boy. We had bought boy stuff. We were not even planning on a girl. It just wasn't it. It was going to be a boy. Sorry, Steph. But yeah, I had to come up with a name real quick, and I was thinking of a name because they're like, yeah, well, what are you going to name her? I'm like, well, I don't know. Ann was there, but she was still delirious from all the drugs that she was on from the pregnancy and all that, and just got through having a freaking baby, So she was in no real condition, and I had to come up with a quick name. And I was thinking of a name that she couldn't be picked on, because I wasn't going to name her the Turd, and I wasn't going to name her something that she would be picked on. And all I could think of was Stephanie. So that's the name that popped in my head, and that's the name I said. And then I chose Ann's middle name, Marie. We called her Stephanie Marie Griffith. And that's how that worked out. I kind of wish now I would have put some more thought into it, maybe named her after my great-grandmother or something like that, or a family member, I don't know. But no, I didn't put any thought into it. Came up with her name probably within 10 seconds. And yeah, it's just how it flowed. It wasn't planned. It just came out that way. Love her to death anyway, never even questioned about having a boy again. So she was born May 12th, 1985 in Pampa Hospital. I think it's Kuhn Memorial, or maybe that's in Delhart. I think it's Kuhn Memorial in Pampa. Anyway, I got her birth certificate, and that's how all that went down. And like I said, we got special treatment. I knew the doctor and the nurses on a personal level inside there. So we got the best care, and I do really believe we really did receive the best care we could have. When I moved out to California, though, that's I continued my security guard career there, and I got a job there at the San Francisco Airport, SFO. More or less like the TSA, herding people through the thing. But before all that, though, while I lived with my grandmother over in Pittsburgh, I did have a couple of jobs there. I worked at the 7-Eleven for a few days. It's a whole lot different working a convenience store in California than it is working a convenience store in Texas. The convenience store I was working in California was robbed. I wasn't there at the time, but whenever I came in and they said, yeah, the guy was robbed, had a gun pointed in his face, he was hysterical. I got to thinking, this isn't the job for me. Didn't really like dealing with money. After being fired for the $12 thing, it just didn't, I didn't really want, and that's why I was kind of like, what? Let me find something where I ain't got to freaking deal with cash. I don't want to have to count money out to anybody. I don't want to have to be responsible for that kind of stuff. And I go like, what? Security guard gig was great at the hospital. Let me try that kind of stuff again. So I went to work at a security company. Got a job there at the airport there in San Francisco, SFO, and got my apartment set up over there. I would travel over there from Pittsburgh over there to find an apartment. Saved up all my money, put a down payment on an apartment, and I was supposed to move in a week. So the apartment is paid off. I had maybe $50, $100 to my name. Me, Ann, and Stephanie. And I'm trying to move from Pittsburgh over to the peninsula in California, South San Francisco. That's where the airport is over there. It's in South City. So I have an aunt that lives there, my Aunt Linda and Uncle Ben. My mom and dad were staying with them at the time, and I know it was imposing, but I asked them if Ann, I, and the baby could stay there for the 5 days that I was waiting for my apartment. I was starting my job over there. I didn't want to have to commute all the way across the bay 2 hours from Pittsburgh to San Francisco. So I asked my aunt if I could stay there while I just if my family could stay there while I went to work there at the airport, which is like maybe 5 miles away. So as we were staying with her for the first 3 days, no problems, everything was fine. Stephanie started crying a lot. She was teething. She was a year old, so she would cry, and apparently, I guess it just got to be too much. My aunt had said that basically, I had 3 days before my apartment was ready, and she basically said that, I'm sorry, you guys can't stay here anymore. The baby, it's just too much with the baby crying. And I can understand that. I knew I was imposing too much with my folks staying there already, and then us asking to stay with them as well. And it was just a small, I think it was maybe just a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, a small apartment. And I think it was just a 2 bedroom. But anyway, what we did, we were sleeping in the living room on the couch and on the floor. But what I did is I had a 1960 station wagon at the time that I sold my Camaro for out in California. I drove that station wagon out to California. Sold the Camaro in Texas, the 454 Camaro in Texas. I traded it for this 1960 station wagon. Drove the wagon out to California, and that's what we were using to live in for those 3 days that I was homeless. What I did was I was an employee for the airport, so I had employee parking pass, and I could park inside the long-term parking. And what I did is we put the mattress of Stephanie's crib in the back seat of the station wagon. Ann and I slept in the back portion of it. I had the back seat up. Stephanie had the whole back seat to herself. Ann and I would sleep in the back portion of the bed part of the station wagon. And then and that's how we did. In the morning time when I would go to work, I would take Ann and the baby in with me to the airport. We'd all ride the shuttle in. I had my employee pass. We just jumped on there. And although people could park there in the long-term parking as well, they would get on there and then ride the shuttle to the terminal to catch their flight. So it was no big deal them seeing all of us get on the shuttle, and we go to the airport. And then Ann and Stephanie would hang out inside the airport. They would walk the whole terminal back and forth all day long while I worked. After the 3 days, we stayed there. At nighttime, there was a security guard that patrolled the parking lot 24 hours a day, so we had a security guard there at all times, so we felt safe. And I didn't want to go to no homeless shelter or anything like that because we would be separated. Ann and the baby could go to one shelter, but then I would have to go to the men's shelter, and that ain't gonna happen. I wanted to protect my wife. I wanted her to be safe. So we all just stayed there in the car for the 3 days. We ate right there at the airport. After I got off work, we just kind of hung out there at the airport, and basically just hung out until we retired. When we finally retired enough, we'd go back to the car just to sleep, and that was it. It wasn't very cold. We had blankets and all, but it wasn't cold because it's California. The weather is very mild. And at that time, it was relatively nice, so it wasn't cold or anything like that. After the 3 days, I got the apartment. We moved in without a hitch. Wish I could say that I'm not a kind of a vengeful or person that holds a grudge, but yeah, I kind of am. Still kind of have some hard feelings towards my aunt. Not really my uncle so much. I mean, I think I would have been better if my uncle would have just pulled me aside and told me straight up how to do it. But instead, my aunt told me, and it was just the way she said it, you know. But anyway, it is what it is. She's still my aunt. I still love her, you know. But yeah, still kind of got a little. Still kind of stuck in my craw, you would say. Never gonna go away. Sorry. At this point, I don't think there's anything that could ever repair that. And but like I said, it is what it is. After that, I continue. I mean, as far as my job there at SFO goes, my boss tells me this. He says, Think of what we're doing is we're hunting these people through the metal detectors, and anything that if it goes off, you stop them, send them back through, remove whatever it is, and send them back through. And he tells me, treat them like cattle. And I'm like, all right, cattle. Hey, I worked at a feedlot. I know cows. So treat them like cattle. Come on, keep moving, keep moving. So how I lost that job? People are coming through. The pilots and crew members for the plane, they just show their badge. They don't have to go through the metal detector. They can go around through the employee entry. I had this FBI agent come in, and my first, probably maybe third, fourth hour there that I'm working. FBI agent comes up to me, says, "Hey, I'm an FBI agent. I'm armed. I don't want to walk through the metal detector because I'm armed. You know, blah, blah, blah." And all I was told, everybody goes through the metal detector except for crew members. If you're not a crew member, you go through the metal detector. That's what I told him. "Sorry, sir. Go through the metal detector. Everybody goes through the metal detector." This fucker goes through the metal detector. Beep, beep, beep. It goes off. He's got a fucking weapon. Everybody fucking freaks out. He says he's FBI. He's FBI. My fucking boss comes over to me and goes like, "What the fuck are you doing? You sent the FBI agent through the metal detector?" I'm like, "Yeah, you said treat everybody like cattle. Everybody goes through except crew members. He's not a crew member. He went through. That's what my orders were. That's what I did." Obviously, if he's got a gun, you don't send him through the fucking metal detector. But it wasn't obvious to me. It's my first fucking day there. So, yeah, I got busted down to baggage. Baggage, what you do? You're the guy. It's downstairs. So no more just easy work fumbling people through the thing. No, I'm busted down to baggage. I got to pull the baggage off of the carousel after everybody leaves. So any leftover baggage I got to pull off the carousel, put into a bin, tag it and lock it, and make sure it's all the flight's baggage for one flight that are left over are secured in a bin together. So the next flight that comes in, all of their baggage that's unclaimed baggage, I take that unclaimed baggage, put it over here into a bin, and loop a big cable loop all the way through it, lock the cable loop, tag it with the flight number. All those bags on this cable loop belong to that flight number that's unclaimed. Then what'll happen is, as I'm standing there, people will come over like, "Oh, that's my bag, it's locked up, what do I do?" I'll come over, I'll check their bag, make sure the ticket matches, and release the bag to them that matches the ticket. Any unclaimed bag at the end of the night, I have to take all of those bags over to the secure luggage area, check all of those in, not one by one, but by flight number. So this whole flight number has 10 bags, that all gets checked in. Flight number 357, Honolulu to LA, had 5 bags. Boom, that one goes in. Check all of those in at the end of the night. Funny story about the bags. Japanese people, what the fuck do you put in your baggage, man? They're freaking heavy as fuck. And you have the biggest bags you can get. The rumor is, back in the 80s, I guess, Japanese bags, fucking heavy as hell, dude. You try to pull it. Sometimes it took 2 people to get those bags in there. And at the end of the night, if you had a flight from Japan, you had to pull over to the lost baggage area. Good freaking luck, dude. You're gonna have to take them, either get help or take them a couple of bags at a time, because you cannot take 10 bags from Japan flight at once. You gotta take 2 or 3, unlock them, take 2 or 3, unlock them, and transfer them back and forth like that. And it's more of a pain in the ass. So, as a baggage handler, baggage guy, yeah, you don't like flights from Japan. The rumor was they would take canned food when they come to America. They bring an extra bag, a suitcase, a large one, so that they could put perishable items in, non-perishable items in, beef jerky, canned food, things like that. And man, that is exactly what it felt like. It was either a body in these bags or canned food, and they were super, super heavy. But yeah, that's the deal of that. Okay, here's how you scam at the airports back in the 80s. Before you come up, if I'm there at the security guard and you're at the carousel, you come up, you grab your bags, you leave. People do it all fucking day. I didn't know people were stealing bags that way, but yeah, that was the scam. People would come up, just grab a bag off the carousel, and walk out the door as quickly as they could. At the end of the day, I would gather up all the unclaimed bags and put it over there. And how we discovered that people were stealing bags like that is people would come and say, "Oh, hey, I'm from flight so-and-so. I'm missing my bag." I'm like, "All right, come over here. Here's all the bags from that flight that were unclaimed. Where's your bag?" And if they pick it out, I'd match the ticket, unlock it, give it to them. Sometimes their bag wouldn't be there, and I'd send them over to the lost luggage over where I check in the bags at nighttime. And maybe it was on another flight, later flight, earlier flight, and got checked in there. So that's where we would send them. The lost baggage or unclaimed baggage. They go there to claim their bags. And if it's not there, they have to file a police report, and that's how we found out bags were being stolen. So that's when they installed video cameras there, and now that's why you can't steal the bags anymore, because everybody is on camera under video surveillance now. But that was actually implemented while I was working there. When I first started there at San Francisco in '86, there was no video surveillance of the baggage area. Whenever people would leave, they would just come in, steal bags, and go. So after that guard gig, I got another security guard gig at Kaiser Permanente. The Strike Force is what we were called. In 1986, Kaiser Permanente hospitals went on strike. I was considered the Strike Force. We were the security guards out there on the front line of the strikers. We had security guards lined up, actually physically lined up out there. The guard that I stood next to was probably maybe 6 feet away, just out of arm's reach. And that's what we were. We were the Strike Force. We would interact with the employees of Kaiser Permanente that were on strike. And it was actually pretty cool because these were doctors, nurses, orderlies that were on strike. So it wasn't like you were dealing with freaking the car workers or labor union or something like that. These were the nurses and doctors unions that were on strike. And man, that lasted for quite some time actually. And it was actually a really, really good gig because when you're on the strike force, it's 12-hour shifts. You're standing on your feet most of the time. You're interacting with these violent protesters. So it's considered hazardous pay. And I was getting paid really good money out there. I think it was like $12 an hour. And at that time in the 80s, that's really, really good money for a security guard. We were not armed. I think at that time I was working for Wackenhut and just basically full-time security. I had another little offside gig. The apartment complex I worked at, whenever I would see shit go down, I'm the type of guy that if I see something happening, I'm calling the cops, man. I'm sorry. If it looks suspicious, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to really intervene unless it's somebody that's being hurt, accosted, raped, or something like that. Yeah, I'll intervene or at least say, hey, stop, I can identify you, something to that effect. The advice I would give now is to break out your cell phone, start taking pictures and video of what's going on. Tell the person to stop. You're going to call the police. You got them on video. Anything to get them to deter whatever action that they may be involved in. So what happened was I saw a couple of people stealing hubcaps off of a car. I was up on the 4th floor. I had a nice little balcony. We would park in the security area, but there was visitor parking out there. And when I'm out on my balcony, I could look down. I could see half of the visitor parking area that was parked away from the fence. If you're parked near the fence on this end, obviously I couldn't see you because your car's parked in there and I can't see through the fence. But I could see all the cars on the other side of the fence that I was on for half of the parking lot of the visitor parking lot. And I saw these 3 kids come in. They had a long driveway you had to come in before the little parking lot there. In the parking lot maybe had 12, 15 spaces. So I saw these kids walking and riding a bike down the parking area. I live there. I know these kids don't live there. I know everybody that lives there, what's going on. Because I was a nosy motherfucker back then. Not so much anymore. But, yeah, back then I kind of kept an eye on shit. And I saw these kids start stealing fucking hubcaps off of the cars out there, just popping them off and throwing them into this dude's bag. And so I call the cops. Cops respond, and they catch the kids. Of course, they come in, they start over there, and I see them do the first car. So I call the cops right away. South City PD rolls in, and I call the cops. I actually go on down there to meet the police. I don't say shit to the kids because that's really not my job. I'm not the security guard for my complex at that time or anything. But I go down there to meet the police. So when the police come into the parking lot, I meet them there at the driveway, and I'm just like, yeah, kids are still here. They're back there. Police come in, detain the kids. I ended up calling their parents and whatnot. Anyway, somebody seen me talking to the police, and also knew that I was a security guard. They see me walking in my uniform every once in a while. So they told the owners what had happened, that I had seen these kids stealing hubcaps. I had called the police. I didn't tell them this. This other residents there at the apartment complex, told the owners of the condominium that we were living at what had happened. A couple of weeks later, the owner of the condominium approaches me and asks me if I'd be interested in moonlighting there as a security guard. He says, obviously I'm keeping an eye on the place anyway, but if I would like to do it in an official capacity and get paid for it. I said, hell yeah, who doesn't want extra cash, getting paid under the table. Turned out I wasn't getting paid under the table. They actually would cut me a check and whatnot. And after the first 2 weeks, when I got cut a real check, and it said security on it, for a security guard position, I was having a kind of a conflict of interest, per se. I couldn't be working for Wackenhut, the security company, and then moonlight as a security guard on my own, especially if I'm wearing their uniform or anything like that. So I would never wear the Wackenhut uniform. I would just be plain clothes security when I was there at my apartment complex. But I mentioned it to my boss that I'm going to start working security there at my apartment complex, and he says that creates a conflict of interest that I would not be able to do both jobs. So what I did is I reached out to one of my best friends at the time. He was a Hawaiian buddy of mine. His name was Mark Adlawan. And Mark, if you ever get this message or see this, man, reach out to me, brother. I've been trying to hook up with you for a while. Lost contact with you and like to hook back up with you. Mark has a great family. His mom is an artist from Hawaii. His whole family's from Hawaii. He's got some beautiful sisters, got some really cool brothers. Mark is the one person that taught me how to surf. One and only time I've been surfing in my whole life was with Mark Adlawan and his brother. And thank you to his brother who loaned me his wetsuit and surfboard. Him and I were the same size, so yeah, I just borrowed his wetsuit. Got out there to try and surf. Now, think of this. At the time, I'm a skateboarder, man. I've been skateboarding since the 70s. Got my first skateboard in Lamar, 1976. We would skateboard out to college all the time, and that was the best concrete skateboarding in Lamar at that time. There were no half pipes or anything during the 70s. Nobody knew about that stuff yet. So it was just basically sidewalk surfing. So my buddy goes, hey, you want to go surfing with us? I'm like, yeah, I've never been. I want to try it. It's California. We might as well, So I got all decked out, wetsuit, surfboard, put the little ankle strap on my surfboard. We fucking start paddling out there. And dude, I ain't gonna lie, man. I got fucking scared as fuck out there, man. That water's freaking deep as hell once you get out there past the breakers. That water's really fucking deep, dude. I mean, really deep. And to be honest, all I really wanted to do was to sit out there on the surfboard and pretend to wait for a wave. Yeah, I tried to catch a couple of waves and missed them. I did catch one wave, and I thought, oh, hey, surfing is going to be just like skateboarding. No, 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 no. 100 times harder than skateboarding. I could barely even stand up on that fucking surfboard, man. The key is you got to get that thing moving. Get it moving before you stand up. It's like getting on a bicycle, trying to balance on a bicycle without it moving. Once it's moving, it's a little easier just to get your balance going. And that's the whole key. Takes you a while to figure that shit out, though. And it's all a technique. You got to learn it. I didn't ride the wave too long and wipe out, but yeah, I got my time in surfing. I'm not a surfer. But yeah, had a great time. It was more or less just fun, just sitting out there, sitting on the surfboard, getting a suntan. The weird thing is, man, I felt fucking shit tickling my feet while I'm down there. You don't know if it's a fish, if it's seaweed, if it's a fucking shark, a whale. You don't fucking know. All I know is something was down there tickling my fucking feet, and freaking my shit out. So that's my whole surfing experience in a nutshell. One day, Half Moon Bay, California. Wasn't even a good surfing day. I did catch a small wave, but it was plenty for me, and it was enough. And to be honest, I will probably never ever surf again in my life. And that's okay. But moving on from there, anyway, how Mark got involved in that story is I met him working at the Strike Force. He didn't work for Whack and Hut anymore, and I reached out to him and said, hey man, what I'd like to do is hire you as my security guard for my apartment complex. Since I couldn't do it, what I planned on doing is just giving him the money under the table. I would take the check and just pay him the money. At first, I was going to try and skim a little off the top, but he's my buddy, man. I can't fuck him over like that. And I was getting paid $10 an hour for that gig, and that's what I gave him, $10 an hour for that gig. I paid him under the table, and then I got the check at the end of the fucking night. And I got fucked over that whole situation. And here's how I got fucked. I was paying him $10 an hour straight up, out of my pocket, every day. So at the end of the day, $80. Boom. There you go. $80. $80. $80. $80. When I got the check, they fucking took taxes out. So I wasn't getting the full amount of money that I had spent out of pocket to pay Mark, because I was paying him $10 an hour flat rate. I wasn't taking out for taxes. I wasn't taking out for insurance. It was under the table. Thank God nothing happened. But yeah, we did that for like 6 months. And at the end of the 6 months, this is why I fucking stopped it. At the end of the year, my taxes come back. So guess what? Not only was I getting fucked by having all those taxes come out, I had to pay the taxes on all. I actually had to pay Mark's taxes on the money that he earned for that whole time, because I was getting the checks cut to me and then I was paying Mark. So whenever I went to do my taxes, I had to claim all of Mark's income as my income. I was paying him under the table. I had to claim all that as my income. So I had to pay taxes on that too. So I kind of got screwed over big time on that. So that is how I kind of figured out, if you're a business owner, you got to take into account a whole lot of other things like taxes, insurance. Do not pay people under the table. It's better to do things legit, do them the right way, stay above board, and be legit. You start paying people under the table like I did, and start trying to scam, it doesn't work out. Believe me, I got fucked big time for that. On my taxes, both ways. on for him not having to pay his taxes, me having to pay him, and then not losing all that income as well. So yeah, it was a bad deal overall. Very bad decision. So hopefully you'll learn from my mistakes. Don't do that shit. Stay above board. Be legit. So my next security guard gig after that is I continued to work for Wackenhut. I did a couple of small odd jobs for those guys. Everything from guarding a fucking hole in the ground in the middle of an island that 2 highways going. I actually had to park my car over the hole and just sit there to make sure nobody fell in the hole on an island with 2-way traffic, if that makes sense. It was 2 lanes this way, 2 lanes that way, and a median in the middle with the grass island, and they were digging holes to put lights for the highway or for this road, and that's why that hole was there. And I just parked my car over the hole, and I got to guard a hole. Other insignificant guard jobs. I had to guard a pile of dirt once, a pile of sand. They dig these holes and pile the sand up for there, and people would come with their pickup trucks back up to the sand, load up their pickup trucks full of the sand because there's a big old pile of it there, and drive off with free sand. So they would hire me to watch this pile of dirt to make sure nobody would steal the dirt. So security guard jobs, they range from guarding a hole in the ground to a dirt pile to high-end security. And so working for Wackenhut, it was odds and ends jobs like that. Sometimes they'd have post you out different places, and that's what I did. Later on, Uncle Tom, he was also worked for Wackenhut, but he actually became, and my dad too, my dad worked for him for a while also, but Uncle Tom actually became a supervisor and then a manager for Wackenhut, and would actually do the training there. And one of the things that was funny for him is, I guess one of the books that he had that would record all the employees, I guess they were on like the 2nd or 3rd book for that office. But the 3rd book, he said, the first name in the book that he received was my name. Whenever I started working for that place, my name was the first officer in the ledger of that book. As you know, they'd write down your name, your address, contact information, and your ID number, your guard card, all that good stuff. And that's what he said. Every time I open up this book, I see your name. You're always the first one at the top. I always thought that was kind of a cool thing. He gets reminded I worked for him first every time he opened it. But I'm trying to think of a couple of other. Actually, Uncle Tom and my dad both worked for Wackenhut. That's when they were posted up at Apple Computer, and that's how they got involved in Apple Computers. As far as Apple Computers goes, and here this is why it's called Ramblin' Rich. Start off with talking about the different jobs I have, and now I'm on Apple Computers to talk about Tom and Dad's job. But anyway, they were both security out there, and that's how we got into these Apple Computers. The first Apple computer we got was a Macintosh 1+1. I think it debuted in 1984. We got it 1987, I think. It was a 1+1. Dad got it, and it had a 1+1. Macintosh was a 1 megabyte hard drive, 1 megabyte RAM. So you got 1 megabyte ROM, 1 megabyte RAM, random access memory, and the ROM. That's the Macintosh 1+1. Later on we got an external drive because it took the 400K floppy, which really weren't floppy. They were hard disk. They were square. It looks like the old Star Trek computer discs. 400K. That's what the hard drive was in the 1+1. Then we ended up upgrading. We got an external hard drive, 400K external hard drive. Then I remember the next. The operating system for that Mac 1+1 operating system 4.2. That's the first operating system for Apple Macintosh I can remember. 4.2. Actually, maybe it was 4.0, then got upgraded to 4.2. But anyway, that was the first Mac OS. Now it's up to like, what is it? Snow Leopard, Panther, all those. Yeah. You know, it's way past OS X. So I think it's OS X, but then they name them more. Pretty soon it'll be OS XX, and then that'll be 20. But I can remember 4, and the very one I remember the most, tried and true, system number 6.0.2. That one actually had a little toilet for the trash can instead of a trash can down there in the lower right hand corner. Had a little toilet, and then when you would throw things in the toilet, the lid would open up and close, and then when you flushed it or when you emptied the trash, it was like flushing the toilet. So it was actually kind of a cool little design upgrade try that they did. A toilet instead of a trash can. The next Apple computer we got after that was Macintosh SE, and this one came in the bag. We got to have the bag, had the SE inside, had a dual drive on the SE, 800K, because then they changed the 400K floppy. What they did is, instead of writing on one side of the floppy for 400K, they figured out, hey, let's write on both sides of the floppy, and then we'll get the hard drive, turn it upside down, it'll read both sides of the disk. Genius. It doubled the space of the hard drive, or from the disks, from 400K to 800K instantly. Beautiful. So that our second computer, Macintosh SE, 800K dual drive. So it had two dual drives in there. Then we could also take the 400K drive from the 1+1. It had a SCSI port on the back. We would put that into the SCSI port on the back of the SE. We had 3 hard drives on that thing. Wow. Then I can remember Dad upgrading to a 20 megabyte hard drive he bought, and that fit underneath it was the same size as the SE, and it would fit right underneath. You would just set the SE right on top of it. And then I can remember he got like maybe a 40 megabyte hard drive, then a 60 megabyte hard drive, and then an 80 megabyte hard drive, and then they went to 100 megabytes. And man, I thought, wow, who is going to fill up a 100 megabyte hard drive? Who has enough stuff that could fill that up? Because at the time, like sound bites that we had were like 8 kilobytes for a sound bite. And that's a little basic sound bite of a ding dong, or Darth Vader saying something. Luke, I'm your father, that kind of thing, you know. 8K sound bites. Very short, 2 or 3 seconds long. That's all they were. Very short. I can remember some of the Star Trek ones were like computer, you know, the red alert sound, little things like that. Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff, I'll be back, that kind of stuff. 8K, that's all they were. 8 kilobytes. Now, that same sound bite, probably a whole lot bigger. But back then, everything was much smaller and compacted. I wish I had access to some of that stuff still. But our next computers after the SE, Uncle Tom was working for Apple at the time, and he got a great deal under he was actually working for Apple, not Wackenhut, and he got a good employee deal. So he bought, whenever we moved from California to Arizona, Uncle Tom had purchased, I think it was 3. Yeah, 3 or 4. I think it was 3 or 4, maybe it was 4 Macintoshes, the blueberry ones. He had the blueberry one, I had the green one, Dad had the purple, Tom had the blue. And those were the Macs that we had when we came out here to Arizona. That's the one I would play Warcraft on, Diablo 2. I would play Sin, which was every Sunday I would hook up with these guys in Australia. They were an army platoon from Australian Army or whatever. There were 3 guys down there. I was the 4th. At that time, whenever we moved here to, I'm getting way ahead of myself here because now I want to start talking about jobs here. But let me go back. Apple Computer in California. I think Dad started working there 86, 87. Tommy started working there about 89. Me during this time, after Wackenhut, I started with a company called APS, which was American Protective Services out of San Francisco, California. APS, I have to thank immensely. They set me up with my first, what I call my really first corporate security guard position. And it was I was posted at Genentech Incorporated, South San Francisco, California. It was out at the very end of Oyster Point Boulevard. Take Oyster Point all the way out to the very end by the bay, you'll hit Genentech. Genentech Incorporated was founded in 1976 by 2 guys, Bob Swanson and, oh man, Bob Swanson, I want to say Bert or something. Anyway, Bob Swanson, Robert Swanson, was was one of the co-founders. He co-founded it. The other co-founder was the actual scientist. So you have the scientist, the DNA doctor, scientist guy. I can't remember his name right offhand. And Robert Swanson, who was the money guy or the businessman portion. So you got the geneticist and the businessman come together. They form Genentech Incorporated, genetic technologies, using recombinant DNA technology to make drugs. And that means not making drugs in the normal fashion. Normally, pharmaceutical corporations make drugs using plants, medicinal plants. You know, the coca plant to get cocaine, all of your other pain medicines, poppy, opiums, opioids, all of that, all of those medicines, the common medicines that you see out there, all of them are derived from plant-based materials. Genentech does not make drugs from plants. Genentech makes drugs using human DNA, recombinant DNA, which is the R in the DNA portion of your DNA in your body. So what they would do is they would take that DNA, replicate it, and use that to make drugs. I know it sounds really far-fetched. It was cutting-edge technology, 1976. When I started with Genentech, they were 10 years old in 1986. That's when I started with them as a contractor, working for APS. People I met out at Genentech that can vouch for these stories. Dave Osborne, he was my direct supervisor, ended up being my manager, my boss for my whole career and tenure there. A couple of other cool people I met out there. Kevin Manley, he was a team lead, control room operator, my peer, and supervisor moving up. Lyman Weaver. Oh, man, I'll name names as I remember these guys. But yeah, there's a lot of great guys. Dean Soltis, he was another supervisor of mine out there that I really, really enjoyed working with. I actually enjoyed all of those guys out there. Jose Salud, his brother was a pro boxer out from Hawaii, the Hawaiian Punch. Joe Salud, or Jesus Salud, that's his brother, the Hawaiian Punch. I worked with his little brother, Joe Salud. things out there at Genentech that I seen, amazing things. I worked at that company from 1986 to 1999. Awesome company. The culture out there, amazing culture. Every Friday we would have parties, company parties for employees, free beer, free popcorn, free food, and the parties would go from after work on Fridays, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Taps shut off at 7. I would be the guy to go over and shut down the beer machines and lock it up at night. So I was the bad guy. Shut down the beer machines, and then we have wine out there, boxes of wine and cheese and popcorn, stuff like that. And the parties we would have every Friday night were called ho-hos. And the rumor behind the ho-hos in Genentech culture was one of the guys, I guess it started off getting his name because one of the employees was going like, "Hey, it's time to go to the party, ho ho ho," and that's how the name stuck, ho-hos. And that's what Genentech calls their Friday night parties. Couple of weird stories about these Friday night parties. They took a turn for the worst in the mid-90s. Went off with a hitch for years. The scam was on Fridays, you would come to work and you could party, get drunk, sober up later on. I shut the taps off at 7, sober up later, and then go home. You get to hang out there after work for free and drink. In the mid-90s, we had an accident that occurred out there regarding the ho-hos. We had one of my officers on Saturday morning came to me and said he has an actually called on the radio to the command center that he had an unresponsive person inside a vehicle. He saw an employee inside, someone inside a car, leaned back, looked like they were asleep. He's knocking on the window, trying to get their attention. They're not responsive. He calls us on the radio. He's got this unresponsive person. We respond out there. We try to rouse them up. We couldn't get their attention either. We called the 911, police, fire department respond. They ended up breaking into the car. This employee was dead. They had consumed too much alcohol at the ho-ho Friday night. It was now Sunday. Just outside the vehicle, you could see where the employee had gotten sick, closed the door, leaned back in their vehicle, and got sick again and suffocated in their own vomit. Horrible way to die. Especially since we didn't discover them until Sunday when my security guard is doing his rounds in the parking lot. After that, they were going to cancel the ho-hos. I mean, they were just going to flat out cancel it. No drinking, no nothing on property. But that's not the Genentech culture, and that's not the Genentech way. Genentech culture is, we ended up getting free taxi vouchers. So, in the event that you consume too much alcohol at the ho-hos, we would give you a free ride home. And then that's where everybody started doing the scam. Everybody would either carpool on Friday, or they would take a cab in on Friday and consume too much alcohol or wine, beer at the ho-hos and get a free ride home. All you had to do for me to get you a free ride home, when I would go over there to shut off the taps at 7 o'clock, I would take a handful of vouchers with me. I would also call 5 or 6 cabs to be on standby just in case anybody needed a ride home. I would call Yellow Cab there in South San Francisco, and I knew the owners there as well because we would do this every Friday from this point on. I would have them send out 3 or 4 cabs just in the event that any of our employees need to have a ride home, and we would give them a free voucher ride home. How these vouchers worked is I would have the voucher, I would sign my name to the voucher, my employee ID, the company's employee ID, that the company would pay for it. Then the employee that's getting the ride home, their information, employee's name, number, and ID, along with the cab driver's name and employee number and his ID. So you had the driver, the employee, and then my name, along with the company's name, Genentech, that would be paying for it. That's all we needed on the vouchers for you to get a free ride home. So what I would do is I would shut down the kegs at night, lock up the two wine dispensers, and then see if anybody needed a voucher for their ride home. I would make the announcement that I have cabs available downstairs. If anybody is in need of a free ride home, come see me for your voucher. And I would check their employee ID, simply write down their name, their employee ID number, and give them the voucher to take downstairs to the cab. You know, I'd take my copy and submit my copy to the company. They would take a copy that had two more copies. The driver would keep one, and the employee would keep one. So it was all covered. So that was the big scam. After that point in the mid '90s, yeah, everybody would just take a cab to work on Friday and then get a free ride home after getting drunk at the Ho Ho Friday night, and that's how that worked at Genentech. Some of the other things I do want to mention while I was out at Genentech, man, I saw so many beautiful things out there. One of the things that was amazing, that it was actually unbelievable. So one night I was working, it was a night shift. I've worked all of the shifts out there at Genentech at one point or another. Like I said, I worked out there from 1986 as a contractor for 5 years, got hired in, and then in '89 I got hired in just as I was going through my divorce. And then I became a company man after that, and, you know, did everything I could to help support Genentech. Moved on up through the ranks there, became a control room operator, supervisor there, and moved on up that way. And ended up leaving Genentech in 1999 when my father moved to Arizona, got sick, and we moved out here with them. Other things I saw out there, I can remember one time sitting in my patrol vehicle and just hanging out, and I see the big moon is up there shining, and there's a fence, and I see this cat walking across the fence, and it's just a silhouette of a cat walking across the fence. Nothing major. Then all of a sudden, I see a big black shadow just swoop down out of the sky. Gigantic bird grabs this fucking cat off of the fence and flies away with him. This bird was huge. I would say it was condor sized. Wingspan probably 10, 15, no lie, 15 feet. He picked up that cat with both talons, and when he picked him up on the back, and the talons were as big as the cat's back. When he picked it up, it picked up the whole thing. He just flew off with him. Amazing. I couldn't believe it. We had feral cats out there, right on the bay. The Genentech sits right on the bay water. I could look across the bay, see Oakland, see across the bay, Hayward, all of that. And feral cats lived out there because they would eat the fish and stuff that would come up on the water there, and it was pretty easy pickings. I can remember going out there even at the bay during low tide, picking up rocks and moving them, and finding two fish with their heads, one fish's head inside another fish's mouth. So it looked like one fish was eating the other fish, but I don't know if they were like that trying to breathe or stay alive. Maybe he was trying to eat them. I don't know. But I can remember seeing this fish eating another fish. It looked like a fish with two tails. And it was just weird underneath these rocks out at on the bay there. I don't know what kind of fish they were. Maybe bullfish or something like that. I'm not sure. Just some weird shit. The other big story out there at Genentech, about the giant rabbit. there was a rumor going around of Genentech makes a growth hormone, a human growth hormone that we've refined and keep. They actually keep at a separate warehouse under lock and key because people were stealing it and selling it to people at the gym. It's what they use to build up their muscles and stuff for growth hormone, human growth hormone, HGH. And Genentech makes a brand of that, and it's targeted for short-statured persons. Actually, Stephanie, they offered me a pilot program whenever they first came out with the HGH, and they wanted to see if I wanted to have my daughter put on it because she was rather short in stature, and I decided not to do that. I'm not going to submit my daughter to any clinical trials for some experimental growth hormone. She's tiny because her mom is tiny, so you know that's my preferred choice. And ladies, I like my women to be not that I haven't dated women that are taller than me. 8th grade up in Cripple Creek, I was paired up at the dance with the tallest girl in class. And she was actually one of the prettier girls in class, too. She had the long, dark hair, which is totally my style. And the funny thing is, I can remember when she asked me to dance with her. And I remember going up and dancing with her, and this is it. My hand on her waist was like this. I mean, her waist was right there. Her boobs were probably right about eye level. And she was a lot taller. I was the shortest guy in my 8th grade class. She was the tallest girl, and we were kind of a mismatched pair. And I kind of want to say we were boyfriend and girlfriend for a couple of weeks, but I don't think I really asked her to go steady. We did just kind of hang out, have lunch, and got to know each other for a few weeks. But then it kind of split off, you know. Other girls would pull me into the girls' bathroom and stuff like that. So, you know, it just kind of... It was a very small class. I think there was maybe 12 to 15 people in my 8th grade class. So, under 20 for sure. And so, it was a very small school. K through 12, 2 towns in one building. It was funny because when we lived in Lamar... And me and my little brother Shannon, we went to Washington Elementary together. And whenever I graduated 6th grade and got promoted to the 7th grade and started going to junior high there in Lamar, I told my little brother, "Ha! I'm going to junior high now. And we're 4 years apart. So whenever I go to high school, you'll just be hitting junior high. We will never, ever go to the same school again. Ever again." Then the next year we moved to Cripple Creek, and sure enough, we're going to the same damn school again. K through 12, one building, 2 towns. Victor had to be bussed in over to the Cripple Creek school because Victor was the smaller town. When it snowed a lot, then the kids in Victor, they didn't get to come to school because they had to be bussed in. But it didn't matter how much it snowed. I remember it snowing 3 feet one year, 1979, and I still had to fucking walk to work or walk to school. 3 feet of snow. I remember in Lamar, it would snow maybe 3 or 4 inches, and they canceled school. Up in Cripple Creek, 3 feet. Still, you gotta walk to school, man. Still gotta go to school. Well, anyway, up in Cripple Creek is also, you know, my dad was a deputy sheriff there, and I had to go on ride-alongs with my dad too. So, which still piqued my interest in law enforcement, because I would go on ride-alongs with him when he was in Lamar. That's where it started. But the ones up in Cripple Creek were actually super cool, because up in Cripple Creek, a couple of times when we were out on patrol, we saw a car that was at the bottom of a ravine that had drove off the cliff and rolled, and we seen it there at the bottom of the ravine. My dad called it in, and he said he was going to stay up here at the top, and he asked me, he says, "Run on down to the car, check it out, see if there's anybody in there that may be hurt." So we got down there. The sun was just going down, but there was still plenty of light. I run down to the bottom of this ravine, make my way down, shimmy my way down there to the bottom, and the car, it's not flipped all the way over, but it's up on its side a little bit because as it rolled a few times, it kind of ended up, on its side. So I get down there and I look through the windshield. I didn't see anybody. I kind of climb up on the rock face that the car is leaning on, get up on top of the car, and I can look in through the passenger window through the top, and I can see inside the car, and there is nobody inside the car. So I yell back up to my dad, "Dad, nobody down here." He goes, "Can you see the license plate?" So I looked at the front of the car. I couldn't see any license plate on the front. The back of the car was in shrubbery and stuff. I couldn't even see the back of the car. So I couldn't see the license plate. So he said, "Get inside the car, into the glove compartment, and try to find the registration." So I get inside there, I pull out the glove compartment, I find the registration, and I just take the registration and bring it back up to him, up there on the top of the hill. Inside the car, though, I did see little specks of blood. It did look like somebody was inside there whenever it went over, and that they had been hurt, but they weren't. There was nobody around. I didn't see anybody that may have been ejected or anything as I was coming down. On my way back up the mountain, that's when I really started looking to see if there was anybody outside the vehicle. They may have been thrown as they were coming down the mountain. To be honest, as I was coming down, I really wasn't paying attention. I was focused on the car and just going towards the car. But on my way back up the mountain, it took a little bit longer to make my way back up because I had to hold on to shrubbery, pull my way back up. That's how steep it was in places. So on my way back up is when I really started looking to see if there was anybody that may have been ejected. We didn't find anybody. It turned out that wreck was a few days old. The person had made it to the top of the road, and somebody else had picked them up and taken them to Woodland Park. They were coming out of Cripple Creek going the other way, took them to the hospital in Woodland Park. And that was like 2 days prior. So nobody knew what had happened, and that car was still down there. We had called the tow truck to have the car removed, towed up out of the bottom of the ravine. And if you don't know how they do that, let me tell you. All it is a big giant cable hook. And they don't give a shit. They go down there, they send the hook down there, just a hook on a cable and a winch, hook it onto the car and winch that sucker up. The car's tore up anyway. It's not going to get ruined anymore trying to bring it up. So they just drag it up anyway, put it on a flatbed and haul it to the yard. And that's how they get those cars down from way down at the bottom of those ravines or over a cliff or anything like that. That's how it's done. A couple of other cool things that happened while I was up there in Cripple Creek, especially with my dad, and we're out there doing the ride-alongs. The sheriff department in Teller County had a four-wheel drive Blazer, a police Blazer, and my dad usually had the patrol car, had the spotlights on it, and the big bubblegum machine, single light bubblegum machine on top. It wasn't the round one; it was square topped, square one. But the Blazer had two of the square ones, so it was kind of cooler. So it had the double lights on top. And I can remember one time when my dad had the Blazer, and we went on a ride along with him. I asked him, I'm like, "Dad, we got the four-wheel drive Blazer. Let's go four-wheeling." You know, I'd never been four-wheeling before. And it was wintertime, but there was no snow on the ground. There was patches, but it wasn't wet or soggy or snowy or anything. So we get out there on the backwoods, in the back woods area. My dad gets out, pops it. Back then you had to physically put them into four-wheel drive on the hubs. So you go out there and you turn it into four-wheel drive, and then he gets back in, and we'll start four-wheeling on up these mountains. And we go through a couple of four-wheel drive, kind of slow crawling on trails. Nothing major, Looking back, it was we weren't like rock crawling or anything. We stayed on the trails, but it was four-wheeling, you know, because it was going up pretty steep embankments and going down embankments, and but we never did really get off road or off trail. But we just kind of made it around the backwoods area, and man, for me it was a blast. The coolest thing about that night, we're out four-wheeling, and we come around this one bend, and we're coming down the mountain into this valley, and we get into this one area, and it opens up, and we can see a whole moonlit valley, and my dad stops right there, and he shuts the headlights off and shuts the truck off. And I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, well, what that? We just blacked out, you know, what's going on? And he goes, well, look over there on the far end of the valley over there. And I look over there, and fucking a whole herd of elk. I mean, these 50, 100, hundreds of elk coming in just through this one little spot in the valley, coming out of the forest, down into this valley, into the meadow. And he goes, and we watch them, and they're just, it was like watching a bunch of ants or something just come and crawl through. They just kind of made their way grazing and walking very slowly, and a whole herd of them come on down. They move through that valley. It was amazing. I'd never seen so much animal life, wildlife out there. Other animals I'd seen out there, bighorn sheep. There's a bighorn sheep that I seen on the 4 mile cutout. Going from Cripple Creek to Woodland Park, you can stay on the main road, the paved highway, the one paved road in the county, to go to Woodland Park. Or you could take the 4 mile cutoff, which is a dirt road, which saves you 4 miles by cutting through the back way through the mountains. And one of the times we were taking the 4 mile cutoff, go to Woodland Park, or usually when we were going down to Colorado Springs, you'd have to go to Colorado Springs. Cripple Creek's a small town. If you wanted to go to the movies or to a big shopping center like a Safeway or something like that, we didn't have that in Cripple Creek. We had a little market, Cripple Creek. A little mom and pop market, just one. That was it, just one. And that, you know, they carried milk, eggs, candy, you know, little necessity things. It was a general store. And but if you wanted a major shopping center or the outlet, you had to go to Colorado Springs or Woodland Park at least. It was Woodland Park, Manitou Springs, and then Colorado Springs at the bottom of the hill. So those are the towns we'd go to Colorado Springs, go through to get to Colorado Springs. So yeah, on that 4 mile cutoff, one time we stopped the car because this bighorn sheep was standing up on this rock right there on the 4 mile cutoff, just majestic as could be, man. It was such a beautiful sight. I've never seen a real life bighorn sheep with the big curled horns, and he was just standing up there as proud as could be, man. And I remember my dad telling me, he says, yeah, get a good look at that, because most people will never ever see a real life mountain sheep, ram. He says, even the hunters that come out there to hunt the sheep, they're only given one license for one kill a lifetime. So in your lifetime, you can only hunt one of these rams, big ram sheep, and mountain sheep. But that's what my dad said at the time. And to be honest, I really don't know if it's true or not, but that's what he was saying at the time. And I can remember just soaking it in, memorizing that ram standing there. And believe me, it was an awesome, beautiful sight. It really was. And I'm kind of glad my dad told me that, because to be honest, that is the only one I have seen in my entire life. Although I have seen that same sheep a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times, but I believe it is the exact same ram because he's always in that same spot too. Not necessarily on that particular rock that I saw him on the first time. The second and third time I saw him, he was in the valley below, but he wasn't standing on that majestic rock like the first time. It was just like out of a storybook, man. Fucking like Simba on Pride Rock, just standing up there, beautiful. The second and third time he was wandering around down in the valley below. But still, you know what? If you see him, you got to take it in when you see it. I've never seen any mountain lion. I've seen mountain lion tracks when we were out deer hunting. Seen plenty of tracks, but I never seen an actual mountain lion.